What's going on, guys? It's Zac Perna here, and on today's video we're going to talk everything about failure, from failure to beginners to intermediate to advanced. Do you need to train to failure? Are you personally training hard enough? Do you need to train harder? Rest times, supersets, drop sets, everything I could possibly fit into one video, we've done it today. So if you're new to this channel, please subscribe below, and if you are a regular viewer, welcome back. And please like the video as well. The timestamps are below, so you guys should be able to use a little scrubber to see what interests you, but please watch the entire video, otherwise I wouldn't have made it. So that's it, guys, and let's get into the video. Basically, after watching this video, you guys should know whether or not you should train to failure, what that actually means, pros and cons, and then actually be left with some practical advice. So what is failure? Failure is not being able to complete another rep, all right? Let's leave it at that. So we have to define failure and what that actually means. So you can't complete another rep with the same standardized form, okay? So now let's get into the form. Your form has to be the same. Here's where people will go, okay, sweet, I failed at 100 kilo bench, but then next week they'll put 110 on, they'll bounce it off their chest, entirely different form. And this is also how people incorrectly do progressive overload, because they change their form every week to lift heavier loads. So basically we have to standardize the form here, okay? So let's say, all right, our form's the same, we're going deep enough, it's good form, you've practiced it, and you can't complete another rep. That seems like common sense. That's pretty much failure. I can basically answer this video right now in the first couple of minutes. As a beginner, do you need to train to failure? No. And that is it for me. You guys know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, stay massive. Nah. But look, I want to tell you guys a little bit more, okay? So don't just exit out of the video yet if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, you can pretty much grow just by getting into the gym, lifting a bit of weight, pushing yourself, working hard, eating food. Great. After a while, that will catch up to you, and then you're gonna need to increase the effort that you're producing in the gym. You need to increase the intensity, you need to add weight, you need to add more weight over time. You need to give your body a reason to adapt. So basically what is happening is you're going to the gym, you're training, you're causing a bit of a stimulus, and then your body has to go, oh shit, I want to be able to lift that next time so I don't die. It doesn't know what's going on. So then the next week, whenever you're in the gym next, your body ideally will be better equipped at handling that weight. And that's basically what's happening over time, is that your body is building the muscle to adapt to the changes you're making in the gym. So if you're a beginner, you need very little adaptations. Really, you're just getting into the gym, your body's like, hey, good's this, let's grow. After a while, you're gonna need to do something, and that's where failure comes into it. But if you are training as a beginner just to failure all the time, like I used to every set, it's basically like you are firing a rocket launcher at a spider. Yeah, you're gonna kill it, but you gotta use the shoe. So if you're just smashing yourself in the gym, here's where the downside of failure comes in, is you get very sore, okay? Now, muscle soreness, I can make a video on this altogether, but muscle soreness doesn't necessarily mean muscle growth, all right? So muscle soreness, the best way to see it is they're two different things. You get sore, that's muscle damage. It's suggested that it's like conducive with growth, but it's really, I would not think of this much as growth at all. Muscle damage, you're actually breaking down the fibers, the muscle fibers, not in a good way. Then there's hypertrophy, where there's a whole cascade of things going on that's actually leading to grow muscle. So there's like the old argument of people think, okay, your muscle, you break it down, that's damage, you're sore, you rebuild it, it's bigger. It's oversimplification, it's actually not how it works. They're kind of two different things. So if you are training to failure all the time, your muscle damage is very, very high. As a result, the next day, you're fucking dead, all right? You're so sore. Another thing that causes muscle damage too is very slow negatives, eccentrics, the way down. So try this. Next time in the gym, just with a heavy weight, normal working weight, go like 10-second negatives. Do that. Control it the way down. You're gonna be so sore. So what happens the next day you wake up, you go, holy shit, I can't train chest again for another 2 weeks. I'm too sore. Do you think you built that much more muscle by doing slow negatives? No. Negatives, you might build a little bit more by incorporating negatives, but going overly slow, it's actually doing more harm than good, because you can't get into the gym again. And when you do, you might not be recovered well enough. So to sum all of that up, it's a balance between recovery and then being able to get back in the gym again. So if you're too sore, your body can't recover because you're training to failure when you don't need to, what are you doing? You shoot yourself in the foot. So let's to wrap all that up, because I feel like I just ramble sometimes. I get pretty passionate about this shit. If you're a beginner, right, so I'm trying to picture the beginner out there who's literally thinking, I really want to work hard in the gym, I just want to push myself. I really get it, like I do. It's great, because I was the same. But the problem is, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can get more out of less. So you can go into the gym, train with a few reps in the tank still, so you don't absolutely fail, and then that's fine, that's great, because then you can get gains out of that, and then you've got something to pull out of your toolbox when you go, okay, cool, now I can go a little bit harder and see how that goes. So I would advise you guys, play around with it and just slowly gauge it, but I wouldn't take every set to a failure, no way. I would say take a couple. Now, here's why I would suggest you take some sets to a failure, because when you are actually learning how to train, it is a skill. It's literally a skill. It's not a very good one, but it's a skill. I can do this. Look at I can do this. If you're learning how to train in the beginning, your body isn't really good at it, okay? So the mind-muscle connection isn't there. You're actually not recruiting the fibers as best as you can. That's why after a lot of practice and years in the gym, you're better at actually recruiting muscle fibers, right? So here's why a lot of the time when people fail as beginners, they're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dead. Like on that rep, that's it. They're done, take it. Whereas if I'm training now, I will get to that point where I'm like, okay, I can grind this rep out and I can go very slow because I can recruit the fibers, I'm used to it, I know what failure feels like. So basically, a lot of beginners actually don't know what failure feels like. They think, oh fuck, that's me done, I'm done. So I think training to failure a couple of times, maybe let's go like, you know, a few sets, a workout, literally a few sets of workout to failure, so you can really test yourself and go, okay, that is failure. Then the more you do that, the better you'll get at it as well. But then in the long run, after you train for a little bit, you'll be better at training to a failure. So that's why a lot of beginners actually don't have the mind-muscle connection, the nervous system connection to actually slowly fail and not shake and then hurt themselves or whatever. It's a different thing. So if you're in the gym training to failure every single set as a beginner, you don't need to. You are exposing yourself to injury risk, obviously. You're also exposing yourself to just more soreness, and then you won't be able to get back in the gym again. So they're the things you don't want. As a beginner, you really want to be in the gym frequently. So you want to recover, great, improve, and get better over time. So failure is good to see where you're at and kind of see what it feels like, but you don't need to do it every set, no way. Now, after you have been in the gym for a little while, let's say a year, 2 years, you've made most of your newbie gains and you really need to start increasing the intensity, and you've got to think, okay, how do I strategically go about building as much muscle as I can? Here is where failure comes in handy. Now, I am a big believer in training to failure, but again, you really need to be the judge of this. So if you go into the gym and you train to failure every single set and do intensity techniques and you just try and cook yourself, you will be so sore the next day. And even if you're not sore too, guys, even if you're not sore, it doesn't mean your recovery is perfect. So by recovery, I mean, can you go into the gym the next time frequently and improve? So a lot of people, they say, I can train, but I'm not sore. But are they getting better over time? So here's one mistake I made in my probably first 5 years of training, is that I would go in the gym and just think, okay, let's go crazy, let's annihilate myself. So what would happen is I'm supersetting, drop setting, no rest. And then as a result, I could train every single day. And there was always something I could train. Like, yeah, my arms are sore, but I could do legs. My legs are sore, I could do chest. So I'd always train every day. But then at the end of like a year, I was not progressing at all because I wasn't allowing myself to progress. So here's the thing, is it's a very simplistic thing of saying, I thought I was advanced, going like, I can train every day, easy. But I wasn't improving. I was kind of just like lifting weights for the sake of it, basically. So I didn't really build muscle for a long time. Now, here's what you guys can do is train to failure 1 set per exercise. I would suggest this 1 set per exercise, especially in the beginning, because you can always build on this, all right? So let's go 1 set per exercise. In the beginning, test yourself. So for example, if I'm doing a bench press, I'll start with bench press, I'll do 1 set, a warm up, another warm up, put a bit more weight on, keep warming up, not till failure, just maybe I'll do 3 reps. Sometimes I do 4 reps just on a warm up because I just want to feel the weight. Then when it's time to hit my working set, that is my set till failure. My form is the same every week, it's standardized, and I'm trying to improve over time. So that is kind of my benchmark of what is really in the tank, what have I got? And I guarantee you guys, most people don't actually train to a failure because it's hard. It is very painful. I don't know many people that really legitimately train to a physical failure on legs. If you're training leg press or squats and you go to absolute failure, gun to the head failure, you'll feel the feeling like you've never felt before. So a lot of people think they're training to a failure, but they're just not at the end of the day. So I would suggest you try to train to a failure. There's an intermediate to advanced, 1 set per exercise, and then it's up to you to build on that. You definitely can, towards the end of the workout, you can start throwing some drop sets in, a bit more intensity techniques to reach failure quicker towards the end of the workout, but it's up to you to gauge that, because if you're getting too sore and you can't recover, like I said, knock it back a little bit. So you guys can, that's why it's a bit of a depends. Should you train to a failure as an advanced? Yes, but maybe not every single set because you'll be too cooked to recover and get back to the gym, okay? So from there, I would suggest you guys just start and then maybe leave a couple of reps in the tank. Like, one very interesting thing to know is that it said that the last 5 reps are what actually counts. Now, Arnold said this back in the day. He said they're the most important ones, is like the last
2 or 3 or 4 repetitions. That's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion.
And you think, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense. But actually, like the literature supports that. So I just read a very, very good book, I'll put in the description, all about mechanical tension for muscle growth. So this was even saying that the last 5 reps are basically the only ones that contribute to muscle growth, which is ridiculous. So like I said, as a beginner, not really, but as an intermediate to advanced, you need those last 5 reps. So if you're training not to failure and you're leaving 2 reps in the tank, that's pretty good because you're still getting 3 of those really good reps in. If you're training to absolute failure, you get 5 of those reps in. But do you really need the extra 2 reps for the amount of soreness and muscle damage that's going to occur? Probably not. That's why it's kind of up to you guys to kind of weigh that up. But I would suggest maybe going to failure to see where you're at, because the problem is, again and again, I'll come back to this later, is that people don't know where the failure point is. They think, oh yeah, I left 2 in the tank. Really, they left 5 in and they're getting no gains. Does that make sense? So I would suggest just to leave no stone unturned, hit a few sets to absolute failure so you know at least you've done those good reps. But on those exercises where you think, I can afford to leave a couple in the tank, then do so. If you look at let's say a 5 rep max up to like a 25 to 30 rep max, like I said, those last 5 reps, the good ones, they are the ones that you need. So if you're lifting a weight as your 25 rep max or it's your 5 rep max, those last 5 reps should look pretty much the same. So think about that, because it's your last 5 reps, right? So they should look the same. Let's think bench press. If you're doing, my 5 rep max of bench will be, maybe 130. So if I'm doing 130 for 5, if I do 25 with 80, those last 5 are probably gonna be the same speed, right? So as far as my body's concerned, those last 5 reps are pretty much identical for muscle growth, because I need to back this up a bit. Let me back this up. Okay, so why do we even train to failure? So for us to build muscle, we need a couple things to happen. One, we need the muscle fibers at a fiber level, each one to produce force. So they're producing force to lift the weight up, right? It's hard. We want that, and we want as many of those going on as possible. So we want to recruit as many fibers as possible, and we want those fibers to be producing as much force as possible. So that happens in those last 5 reps that I was just talking about. That happens in your 5 rep max, because the weight is so damn heavy that your muscles are like, fuck, here we go. Each fiber is producing force. The speed is really slow, and a slow contraction speed when you're really trying to push it is what's building a lot of muscle. So they're the good reps. It's just, you don't have to worry about what's going on. If you want to Google it, I think it's the force velocity relationship, I'm pretty sure. But basically the slow reps are the good ones. So when you're doing a 5 rep max, they're slow. When you're doing a 25 rep max, the last 5 are also really slow. So those reps are really good, and they're both allowing you to produce a lot of force within the muscle fiber and also recruit as many of those as possible. So they're the 2 things that you want. Now, if you're not training to failure and you're not approaching those hard, slow reps when you're thinking this sucks, then as an advanced athlete or an intermediate trainer, you're really not building as much muscle as you might think, even though it might not be comfortable. So it's the same as if I go in and leave 20 reps in the tank, my arms are not growing, all right? It doesn't matter how many reps I did. If I leave that many in the tank, they're not growing. The thing is, and what I'm realizing now is if you're doing one thing, you're gonna have to deal with something else, always. So let's say you're doing those 25 reps, you're doing 25 rep max. The first 20 reps is accumulating a lot of fatigue. Your pump is crazy, the lactic acid, the burn, that might help muscle a little bit, but really it's not all that helpful because it's just accumulating fatigue. If you're doing a 5 rep max, you're accumulating a lot less fatigue than that. So that's why that's why we don't train just a million reps. We don't train all the time like that, because it's efficient to actually use heavy weight and apply that loading and tension on the muscles without having to do like 30 reps to get there. So that's why you can vary your training with the rep schemes. We always advise that. But in terms of that failure point, it's pretty much the same as far as the body's concerned. Because you probably think, well, hang on, what about rest times? Because if I rest for 30 seconds and then I go do my set, I'm gonna hit failure a lot quicker than if I rested for 4 minutes. And yeah, 100%. But the goal isn't to hit failure with anything, otherwise you wouldn't rest at all. The goal is to produce the most force possible within the fiber, AKA get more reps, lift more weight, right? Because that's what's actually doing it. That's what's responsible for growth. So if I am lifting, let's say I'm curling 20 kilos. I'm curling 20 kilo dumbbells, great, I hit failure, dead, maybe 10 reps. Put them down, 10 seconds later, I got to pick them up again. I got 1 or 2 reps. So that failure point's 2 reps, it's nothing. If I got 5, those 5 reps I only got 5 because I've accumulated a lot of fatigue. That's not great. If I were to go quickly, drop the weight and then have to use 7s because my rest time is a lot shorter, then obviously the amount of force produced by each fiber is going to be different because you're just hella fatigued and then you've had to drop the weight to compensate for that. So that's why I would suggest keeping your rest times pretty constant. Keep them around 2 minutes, heavier lifts, like really big lifts, like if you're doing squats, deads, bench, whatever, 3 minutes, I think is good for recovery, but ultimately guys, it's up to you. It's up to you to decide that. I mean, the less rest you have, the more pump you're gonna get, but that doesn't mean the bigger you're gonna get. So the pump is just kind of fun. It's what I see as a little nice byproduct, and we do it at the end, just a quick pump just to leave no stone unturned. But in terms of actually building muscle, you want to perform. So then you think, how much rest do you need? You guys know the answer to that. If you take 3 minutes rest, I think that's pretty good. If you take 10 minutes rest, the workout's going to take you like 4 hours. And if you take 30 seconds, you're not going to be able to recover in time. So don't overthink rest. Let's just think rest is literally as long as you need to recover to do that set as best as you possibly can again. If it was up to me, I would pretty much like to rest for 5 minutes in between big sets. But then towards the end of the workout, I keep the rest lower at about a minute, minute and a half, just to maximize the blood flow kind of things. But that's literally the final, 20% of the workout. I've already done the work. That's a bit of fun. So that's why most people think they're working hard because they don't rest and they just run around the gym and they go nuts. And really, they're doing what I did when I was like 19, 20, and they're just training for the sake of it, because you could be doing so much more, you could be improving over time, and instead you're just running on the spot, getting nowhere. That's kind of like what I was doing, and at the same time dieting, and it just wasn't a lot of fun. So to sum that up, rest as long as you need to recover for the next set. And similarly, you've got drop sets. Now, if you're not resting at all and you're just doing drop sets the whole time, that is accumulating those good reps. So, you are getting those good failure points. It's literally like doing another set to a failure, but you're also accumulating a lot of fatigue. Now, too much fatigue is not what we want. Think about it. If you just do 10 drop sets in a row, how do you think you're gonna perform on your next exercise? You're just not. It's not gonna be worth the extra stress that you're putting on your body. So I like drop sets. I really like drop sets, and I like supersets for efficiency, because pretty much to me, both of them are really good for efficiency and as well as getting a bit of a pump. So that's why I don't necessarily do a whole lot of drop sets every single workout. Some I do a drop set in the beginning, some I do a few more drop sets at the end, but for the most part, I don't just load everything with drop sets, because you are accumulating that little bit of fatigue that's gonna hinder your performance and recovery as well. So that's why you just gotta tread the line of where you wanna sit on that performance, failure, and then recovery. It's kind of like a strange triangle that we've got to balance here. Training to failure, performance, and then actual recovery. Now, if we're gonna talk about failure, we also have to talk about reps in reserve, because guaranteed, the comments are probably filled with people anyway talking about that, because it has so much merit. Now, why? The benefit is, like we're touching on earlier, is that you will accumulate less muscle damage, your recovery will be better, and you'll be able to hit it more frequently. It's a long-term strategy, because you're not waking up feeling dead the next day. You can train again because you're being a bit more smart about it. The cons where I see this coming to play is that, like I said before, people don't know where their failure point is. So let's go leg press. If I hit 15 and I thought, yeah, I just left 3 in the tank there, the 18 was probably my max. Okay, if I took that set to a failure, maybe my max was 25. And I've just bitched out thinking I was leaving reps in the reserve, but really I was leaving like 10. So that's where I think the biggest pitfall is that people actually don't know where their failure point is. They might think they're leaving 2 in reserve, and really it's 5 in reserve, and their set was kind of pointless. So that's why the failure approach every set kind of eliminates that, because you can't lift it anymore, that's done. But stopping one short of failure, I think is a way of mitigating that, because it's not that last rep that's just pure hell. You probably thought, yeah, okay, I could probably get 1 or 2 more. I reckon that's a good way of going about it. But like I said, I would always try to push the failure point a little bit just to see where I'm at. And then next time when you're training, fuck, that was my 25 rep max. Now for legs, I'm gonna hit 23, So you do have to hit failure so you know where that point is, instead of just guessing all the time. So like I said, the benefit of that is your recovery should be better, because you're not accumulating as much muscle damage, and the soreness shouldn't be as bad. So recovery should be better, which is what we want. We want to recover as quick as possible. So I feel like this video may have been a little bit on the boring side, because it's just a topic that I would want to talk about, just so you guys know, because it's kind of like, now it's up to you to figure out, okay, so what do I do? So as a bit of a final recap, if you're a beginner, you don't need to train to a failure, but I would recommend doing so every now and then, just to be able to see where you're at, test it, and practice at utilizing all those fibers. Just practice mind-muscle connection. Make sure your form is good, please. Please make sure you have good form, because if you don't, you're cheating yourself, and it's just gonna get you in the long run. So what I would suggest for intermediate to advanced is, yes, train to a failure. If you wanna leave no stone unturned, take 90%, take 80% of the set, the working sets to a failure. So warm up, warm up, warm up, then hit your working sets to a failure, right? But really, realistically, you don't absolutely need to, because leaving a few in the tank, a couple in reserve, is gonna be a bit more beneficial in the long run, but it's just of like, how do you judge that? Do you really know how many you're leaving in the tank? If you do, great, then that's up to you, and you can decide, I'm leaving 1 in the tank. But for most people, and the way that I like to train mentally, I don't like to leave things in the tank. Like, I don't actually like to go a
could have done 2 more there. I really enjoy the aspect of mentally pushing myself. So for me, that outweighs the best approach for myself. You know, like if I were to build more muscle, leaving a few in the reserve, but I get a better kick out of training and pushing myself to failure, I'm gonna do the latter. So that for me, that's why it's a personal preference thing. But for you guys, just make that call. Just know that you do have to hit failure sometimes. The longer you train, the more advanced you get. I feel like the more you need to do this because the harder you have to push your body, but you don't need to go every single set, drop sets crazy, all this insane shit and accumulating heaps of fatigue, because we want to recover and keep training at the end of the day. So that is pretty much it, guys. I hope this made sense and was in some kind of logical format. If it did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And please, if you guys could turn those notifications on, that'd be amazing, because I swear nobody's getting the notifications. People keep saying YouTube's not telling them. So hit that little, where is it there? The bell. Turn that on and please follow through with it. Comment when you've done it so I can see it. That'd be great if you could do that. And I will reply to your comment, I promise. Now, that is it from me, guys. Got nothing left for you, and you definitely know what to do. Stay massive. Slide into your DMs in the PM and the AM, then I slide into your feelings when you see just what I'm saying.